A very good morning to everyone, and a very warm welcome to the second International Conference on Positive Psychology by the National Positive Psychology Association, or NPPA. I am Dr. Shilpa, an Assistant Professor of Psychology at the Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat. And I have been associated with NPPA for nearly 6 years now as an executive committee member. NPPA was established in 2013 to bring together Indian educators, researchers, practitioners, and students interested in the field of positive psychology. Our family has grown exponentially over the years with all of your support. And after the grand success of our first conference in 2023, we are delighted to welcome you to our second conference. We hope this two-day virtual forum will serve as a rich learning experience for all of you, and we can all collectively further the cause of positive psychology in India. Without any further delay, we will now proceed to the presidential address to be delivered by Professor Vimala Veeraraghavan, the respected president of NPPA. She holds a doctorate in psychology along with double MA degrees from Delhi University, where she graduated as a gold medalist in her master's program. Professor Veeraraghavan has over 40 years of teaching, research, and administrative experience. She has headed the departments of psychology and applied psychology in Delhi University and has also served as an associate professor in Jawaharlal Nehru University, teaching MPhil and PhD scholars. Throughout her career, she has guided over 20 PhD and 30 MPhil students. After retirement, she served at Amity University, Noida, as professor and director general of the Amity Institute of Behavioral Health and Allied Sciences, where she established the Department of Psychology and instituted graduate, postgraduate, MPhil, and PhD programs in psychology. Subsequently, she joined Indira Gandhi National Open University as Emeritus Professor of Psychology and established the Psychology Department, which offers graduate, postgraduate, and PhD programs in psychology. At present, she is the Emeritus Professor of Psychology and Education and also the Dean of Academics at APJ Stia University, Gurgaon. Previously, she has also been a visiting professor at Thammasat University, Bangkok, and has delivered invited lectures in universities abroad, including Penn State University. She has also conducted workshops in subjects related to psychology in several international and national conferences. Apart from her rich administrative and teaching experience, Professor Veeraraghavan is also a prolific researcher who has authored 23 books, contributed chapters to many books, published over 70 articles in national and international journals, and completed over 20 sponsored research projects by the UGC, ICSSR, DIPR, and Department of Women and Child Health, Government of India, among others. Her contributions to the field of psychology have been recognized with several awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Asiatic Society and the National Fellowship Award from the Indian Council of Philosophical Research. We at NPPA are extremely honored to have an educator, researcher, and administrator of her repute as our president and advisory committee member. And it is my absolute honor to invite ma'am to please deliver our presidential address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shilpa. It is indeed a great privilege and pleasure to deliver this presidential address today. Good morning and welcome to all delegates from home and abroad to this second international conference of National Psychology, the Positive Psychology Association on the theme Positive Psychology in Action. This international conference has been actually, is the second one in the sense that the first conference was able to bring in a large number of delegates from abroad and in India where many new devices, new ideas, new innovative interventions were all presented by different researchers and experts who also conducted workshops. Since the time established, our NPPA has been working continuously and intensively in the field, with quite a few of its members getting even PhD degree on topics related to positive psychology. The first conference brought in a lot of delegates who shared our platform and presented their seminal research. In fact, some of the interventions which came up, I find this time is being continued by many other researchers also. Since the concept of positive psychology was put forward in 1998 by Seligman, the corresponding intervention field has also developed since then in a very fairly systematic way. This indicates how positive psychology has effectively transformed theory into a dynamic set of pathways to support individual and community well-being efforts. Positive psychological interventions, which consist of a series of practical application, help to strengthen positive resources, and actually it is a little different from that of the traditional approach, which we are all aware manage mental health problems more in terms of symptoms and hence suffered from certain limitations, even though they were also fairly effective. However, positive psychology interventions are tried and succeeded to an extent in overcoming some of these limitations of the traditional method by identifying and utilizing personal strength as a means to facilitate personal growth of the individual, community functioning, and organizational thriving. Research over the years has shown positive psychology interventions to have significant short-term and medium-term effects, which has contributed greatly to its popularity in practice. With a result, many more positive psychological interventions have been developed and validated to facilitate positive emotional experiences. Moreover, given the increased interest in developing wide arrays of positive psychological intervention, researchers are focusing more on those interventions which are effective in different contexts, communities, and cultures. At the present, positive psychology interventions are also criticized on the ground that it is being westernized, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic enterprise, weird, W-E-I-R-D. These interventions are also accused of ignoring positive aspects, cultural origin, and neglecting the experiences and expressions of strengths of the underprivileged, underrepresented, and underserved groups. Thus, in the last few years, positive psychology interventions have attempted to improve in this area. And it is seen that presently we do have, though less than 1%, I should say, articles in positive psychology, which all include representation from lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer communities and individuals. You are all aware that there have been guidelines regarding how positive psychology interventions can be adapted to different cultural contexts and how to enhance the intersection between positive psychology intervention and non-weird cultural identity. Yet, the progress appears to be rather slow because of the difficulties faced in identifying unique insights into how interventions can be framed, constructed, and evaluated in such cases, where both theory and application can support culturally affirmative action across diverse geographic locations, lived experiences, values, and cultural identity. Another important point to note is that majority of research undertaken and the constructs developed in positive psychology intervention have focused on flourishing at an individual level and not at the complex systems level. What is now needed is to shift our emphasis to enable all persons to make their highest in contribution. In this context, positive psychology has opportunities to broaden its focus by paying more attention to the study of how people can successfully live through even negative experiences and transform them successfully to grow and live happily. This, as you all know, has been labeled, that is, using both positive and negative aspects of life experiences, has been labeled as the second wave in positive psychology that encourages and help people to recognize the darker side of life and grow into a productive, happy, functioning individual from the various setbacks, adversities, and negatives, as well as from our imperfections, mishaps, and failings. To conclude, I would like to mention that there is a need for more studies of high quality and standards, particularly conducted in diverse population with diverse intervention models, short ones which can give quick results also, and positive psychology for this has considerable scope to bring about transformation in public health area through its effective interventions. Today and tomorrow, we have innumerable presentations with meaningful and informative workshops. I am confident our association will have more to share researches on diverse population and diverse intervention models in our next international conference. As I said in the beginning, our National Positive Psychology Association, through these conferences, aim to innovate and devise interventions that could bring about succor to millions around the world from any kind of emotional problem. With these few words, I wish you all a thought-provoking, academically fulfilling, and meaningful deliberation the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for gracing us with your presence and for such an enlightening talk, which is of immense relevance to all of us present here today. I now welcome Professor Dr. Kamlesh Singh, Secretary and Treasurer of NPPA, to deliver the welcome note. Dr. Singh is a professor of psychology at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Delhi. She has published 3 co-authored books, Measures of Positive Psychology, Development and Validation in 2016 with Springer, Translation and Research in Applied Psychology in India 2019 with Sage Publishers, and Religious and Spiritual Practices in India, A Positive Psychological Perspective in 2023 with Springer. She is also the author of the award-winning book, Bhartiya Sandarbh Mein Vyavaharik Sakaratmak Manovigyan, published in 2018. It was awarded the Rajbhasha Gaurav Award for Original Writing in Hindi on Gyan Vigyan for Citizens of India by the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. She has published over 100 research papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and around 20 book chapters. In 2019, she was the recipient of the very prestigious Shane J. Lopez Award for Professional Contributions in Positive Psychology in recognition for her outstanding contributions to the field of positive psychology by the Section on Positive Psychology, APA, or the American Psychological Association. We are extremely privileged to be under Professor Kamlesh Singh's leadership, who has been leading NPPA from 2013. I now invite ma'am to kindly deliver the welcome note and give us an overview of the conference as well as positive psychology in action. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shilpa. Professor Veeraraghavan, Dr. Shilpa, and esteemed participants, good morning. With great pleasure, I extend a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the organizing committee of the second NPPA conference themed Positive Psychology in Action. As we all know, over the past 25 years, positive psychology has been a prominent field. Peterson defined positive psychology as the scientific study of what goes right in life and what makes life most worth living. Positive psychologists' focus has been on the examining the constructs of positive psychology along with their assessment tools and applications which can reveal strategies for maximizing inherent strengths and potentials. Applied positive psychology and psychology in action emphasize the practical application of positive psychology principles in real-world context. Positive psychology in action emphasizes the real-time spontaneous applications of positive psychology principles in everyday life. It focuses on integrating positive psychology concepts into daily practices, habits, and interactions. The sustainable happiness model highlights three main factors: genetic influences, environmental factors, and intentional activities. When we say environmental factors, we can try to create positive environmental settings like positive schooling, positive organizations, positive nations, positive communities, positive technology, and so on. In positive psychology in action, there are various factors like we can talk about, strengths, positive emotions, meditation, physical and mental health, building resilience, happiness, mindfulness, and maybe, pursuit of meaning and purposeful life. When we go towards, intentional activities, these activities can be divided in three sections. One, designing intervention programs for enhancing well-being. Second, identifying perceived happiness increasing strategies. And third, which is more relevant to Indian setting, exploring existing socio-cultural and religious spiritual practices to promote well-being. We know now, I think, more than hundreds research papers available in which there are some intervention programs which are being delivered to improve well-being, mental health, and positive psychological constructs. And they are using number of sessions related to resilience, optimism, kindness, hope, self-management, stress management, and so on. On the other hand, in some studies, that's bottom-up approach, in which we are trying to document what are happy habits of a lay person, what kind of habits they like, and ask, some open-ended questions. And then again, number of research papers have documented that they like to practice kindness toward others, pursuing goals that are important to them, expressing gratitude, being optimism, doing physical, emotional, physical exercises or sports, nurturing my social relations. They highlighted that, and like that, there are various others. In the same line, we have recently conducted a research in which we have identified the 5 pursuit of happiness in Indian setting, like pursuing a positive outlook. Individuals engage in the shape their mindset in a positive direction, pursuing goals, a range of actions directed towards setting and achieving professional goals, pursuing faith, signify a sense of deep commitment or a dedication towards faith, pursuing emotional stability, facilitates a well-balanced and stable state of mind, pursuing a healthy life, reflect actions, behaviors, and behaviors crucial for their physical and mental health. So like that, there could be various other studies. I think third, which is, as I mentioned, more important in Indian setting, because we have diverse, socio-cultural settings, as well as various religions we follow. So religious, domain having very significant role in our life. And there are some religious healthy practices, which are highly connected with positive psychological intervention programs. In our recent book, published in 2023, last year only, we have published how religious and spiritual practices in India could be connected with positive psychological strategies. And in world as well as in India, there's a substantial number of people who are documenting that they are following certain religions, and that's a large number. So that's why religious, spiritual practices and socio-cultural practices very important for us. We have done some, small experiments in this direction. First is related to, satsang. In North India, women sit all together and sing bhajan, spiritual religious songs. We conducted a study, and participants perceived that doing this action, they feel like entertainment of the day, purposeful life. They visit outside. They do some pro-social behavior. I think positive psychology students and researchers know it's highly correlated with the happiness, strong social support, and family contribution, because they come with their grandchildren in the park, and the children play, and they do satsang, healthier interpersonal relations, free from stressors during singing, and sharing with same age group their lives, their sorrows, their joy, and each and everything. Similarly, in another research, we documented that, especially in rural community, designing intervention program for them are more challenging, rather studying some ongoing practices like satsang, Brahm Kumaris, or Radha Swamis. And we observed that they were not very much involved in our intervention programs and couldn't get, significant mental health oriented results. However, they had changes in intervention programs, changes in their physical health, body balancing, and self-care. On the other hand, related to mental health, related to well-being, related to quality of life, we observed significant results, the followers of these groups versus non-followers. And they identified certain issues related to their life. For example, these elderly rural women documented that they want to move forward in life, leaving unhappy memories behind. Physical diseases, were one of the causes of unhappiness. They also having sleeplessness in their nights. So to some extent, I think there should be more, active role of social scientists, especially positive psychologists. And ultimate goal, sukh shanti chahiye, seeking happiness and peace. And we also observed that after joining these group, what changes they had in their life, like in interpersonal relations, less agitated they are more devoted to their, gurus or God. And their lives were having certain changes, as per joining these groups. Similarly, when we are interested to say something from our community, from our socio-cultural settings, then we can have some adaptation in ongoing intervention programs also. Such kind of studies we conducted in 2020, 2018 to 21, it was going on and published in 2021. We had 14 sessions related to positive psychological, messages. These messages were highlighted or were supported with Indian spiritual leaders talk, videos of motivational speakers, and animation based short message driven stories were there. And we followed an edutainment approach for college students like this. Here you could see there are 14 sessions, and in these 14 sessions we supported with some TED Talks from spiritual gurus messages, something like apne sukh aur apne dukh ka rachiyata kaun from Bhagavad Gita. We took this clip. So it's the, I think, best combination of Indian psychological messages plus positive psychological intervention programs, and found very interesting results. In another study, we documented that yoga as a well-being enhancing practice and existing practice. And in this existing practice, actually, we divided participants in different groups, yoga practitioners versus non-practitioners and other spiritual, practicing groups, and observed that a yoga practitioner had significant lower depression, anxiety, stress, and higher general well-being. So that is another, existing strategy which can be followed from our culture. In another experiment, we delivered this program on WhatsApp messages. All of us get number of messages. So we selected a group and sent them messages related to, say, in first week, mental health awareness messages and videos were there, 20 to 25 minutes. Next week, mental health disorders related, because that awareness is very important. Third, lessons from positive psychology, third week, and then self-help strategies in the last one. And again, interesting results we observed. So I'll say this is a small part of such studies. There could be various other risk and protective factors in diverse socio-cultural settings in India, requiring further research. Now about this second international conference on positive psychology. You could see it's a good combination of international and national speakers. And in these 2 days, you'll find various topics, addressed by these esteemed honorable speakers, from decoding happiness towards a universal and uniting understanding of well-being, positive technologies, positive psychology, yoga and Ayurveda, existential positive psychology, money and happiness, joyful leadership, good life, nurturing harmony, culturally sensitive positive psychological interventions. I trust the conference will offer a plethora of insights for each of us, because we are having number of sessions, parallel sessions, and covering various themes. Before I conclude, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of this conference: the organizing committee, keynote speakers, chairpersons, moderators, paper presenters, and other participants. Your commitment and involvement have made this gathering possible, and for that, we are truly grateful. Thank you very much. Hope you are going to enjoy this 2 days event.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful address, for helping us understand about the different pathways for pursuing the good life, and also sharing with us your ongoing research. And towards the end, by helping us understand what we are looking forward to, including the parallel sessions, the keynote lectures, etc. You have truly set the tone for the next 2 days of the conference. We will now move to the last segment of our inaugural session, which is the inaugural keynote lecture by a very well-renowned educator and researcher in the field of neuropsychology and cognitive sciences in India, Professor Dr. Kumar Mandal. He is a distinguished visiting professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and an adjunct professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies, as well as at Allahabad University. He is also an emeritus professor at Rashtriya Raksha University, India. Formerly a distinguished scientist and director general and a professor of psychology at IIT Kharagpur, Dr. Mandal specializes in the areas of neuropsychology and cognitive sciences. He was elected as the Fellow of National Academy of Psychology in India in 2021. And considering his contributions to the field of psychological sciences, He was given the Technology Leadership Award in 2016 by the then Defense Minister of India. Some of his other notable awards include the Scientist of the Year Award given in 2006, Agni Award for Excellence 2005, and Technology Spinoff 2007 by the Prime Minister of India. Dr. Mandal has to his credit 14 books, over 100 research papers in international journals of high repute, with over 7,000 international citations of his research work. And today, we have the privilege of listening to Professor Mandal's inaugural keynote lecture on the topic, Decoding Happiness, Understanding the Science Behind It. Sir, on behalf of Team NPPA, I must say that we are extremely thankful and grateful to you for your continued support, and we are honored to have you as our inaugural keynote speaker. This session will be chaired by Professor Rajveer Singh, a very distinguished professor of psychology. He is presently adjunct faculty, Chaudhary Ranveer Singh Institute of Social and Economic Change, Maharshi Dayanand University, MDU, Rohtak. Before joining his current position, he served as professor at the Faculty of Behavioral Sciences, SGT University. He has been senior professor of psychology at MDU, Rohtak from 1991 to 2016. Here, he has been the head of the department twice, and he has also been the Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Dean of Social Welfare. Earlier, Dr. Rajveer Singh has also served as faculty at Kurukshetra University. He has completed UGC and DST-sponsored projects and has also been the coordinator of UGC's Special Assistance Program in Health Psychology for nearly 10 years from 2004 to 2014. Till date, over 30 students have completed their PhD degrees under his supervision. He is specialized in biology of behavior and has taught for over 42 years. He has authored 3 books and edited 4 volumes in the area of health psychology, well-being, and research methods, and has published more than 100 research articles in various referred journals. I must also mention that we at NPPA are very privileged to have Professor Rajveer Singh as one of our advisory committee members. With this, I now hand over the lead of the session to Professor Singh and request him to please take over. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Shilpa. And I welcome all of you to this very, very special session of this conference. I welcome on my own behalf Professor Manas Mandal on this particular session. It is always, privilege to listen and hear him. And it's always a very pleasant and learning experience. More so that he is working in the area which is so important for each one of us, because the ultimate aim of pursuing the well-being and the life is that the happiness. Yes, he will definitely be, touching some of the scientific aspects. However, the subject is being, read, taught, and experienced and practiced at number of levels, and many things, do not confluence each other. But yes, the science of happiness is perhaps not a very, very well, practiced area. And this is something very important. He has a very dedicated work in the area of neuropsychology of emotions, and he is a very, very right person to speak on it. I have also heard him, and he has been associated with a number of such pursuits which are going all over the world to see and to study the science of happiness. So I am also, and I'm sure that all others who have joined this particular conference and session will be eagerly awaiting, his address on this particular topic, which is so close to our hearts. So without, taking any other time, I invite Professor Manas Mandal to deliver his, first inaugural address to this conference. Thank you, Professor Manas Mandal, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. A very good morning to all of you. Let me share my slides first, and then I would like to begin. Sir, can you see my slides?
Yes, these are certainly
Visible.
visible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir, once again for giving mm, a brief about my work. Of course, I don't deserve that much, but you spoke so. So in this conference, I think it's always a privilege and a personal pleasure to talk to an audience in IIT Delhi. And particularly, I see close to 50 people are actually listening to it. Generally, we find more of speakers, less of audience. So that way, it's a good success and great success. And I also had the privilege of just listening to Professor Veeraraghavan. I mean, she's senior, much senior to me. I had the occasion to meet her several times. And I know her passion and how she has created actually this movement behind positive psychology. About me, honestly speaking, I was never in the field of positive psychology. All through my lifetime, close to 43 years of my teaching and research, I was engaged primarily in the area of understanding the darkness of human mind. I mean, I wanted to see how brain works when there are certain forms of mental disorders and diseases. And I started my career with schizophrenia, trying to understand what is the real reason of developing schizophrenia and what are the brain mechanisms that actually work in that process. But then, of course, I moved to defense, and there also I didn't see much of happiness because in a soldier group of 1.3 million, you may not see much of happiness because soldiers are always alert and geared up towards facing adversity. So after completing my terms for nearly 3.5 decades, I could realize that there is a need to understand this part of the science as well, which is happiness. But in today's talk, as Professor Rajbir Singh has just mentioned, I would like to create a slightly different viewpoint of science of happiness from positive psychology. Because I had several discussions with Martin Seligman while I was in University of Pennsylvania. In fact, I fought with him several times on the idea that why science of happiness is different from positive psychology. In today's effort, I'm not going to say that, well, it is orthogonal to each other, but I'll say that, well, there is a high degree of overlap between positive psychology and science of happiness, but there is a difference as well. So in positive psychology, we try to really understand the signature strengths, and we believe that those signature strengths, if they are cultivated, it will lead to happiness. So happiness is treated in positive psychology as an outcome, not as a process. So given that, I would like to highlight about the process more, that is, what is the science of happiness, rather than trying to delve into the issue of positive psychology per se. I've listened to Professor Kamlesh Singh also. She has been doing phenomenal work in the area, particularly in the area of indigenization of the ideas of how positive impact can be created amongst the masses. This is one area where I discussed with Professor Martin Seligman as well, that, well, we do not have a very individualistic approach of making people happy. We are more interested in creating happiness for others. So our happiness has a different kind of operationalization as compared to a Western operationalization. And I also tried to tell him, look, 75% of the theories are based on only 25% of the human population. So if you want to believe that, well, our happiness is the same as that of yours, it may not work. So an intellectual argument, of course, is such a stalwart that I stand nowhere in front of him. But I had the courage to argue with him and tell that, well, this is what is our position. So when Professor Kamlesh Singh said that the Western way of thought process doesn't hold good directly to our process of understanding happiness is surely true. And then I also listened to Professor Veeraraghavan. She had come up with different critical factors, which go against the positive psychology movement. And I would like to highlight those once again. And therefrom, I would like to take up the issue of science of happiness, which is the effort to understand what do we actually mean by happiness. So there are critics. I was going through a large number of literature because of my current activity related to science of happiness, because science of happiness as a program we have initiated in 40 different universities throughout the world. We just completed, introduced a Center of Science of Happiness in University of Waterloo a couple of weeks back. And we have been doing it all over the world. And the idea behind using science of happiness as a construct, slightly different from positive psychology, are many. Some such are actually highlighted by Professor Veeraraghavan as well. First of all, the basic notion that humans are more good than bad probably is half truth. It's half truth. It's a self-serving illusion for this construct that there is always a good part in human being, and there is always a choice for us to become happy. And if we want, we can become so. But if it is a choice to become happy for many of us, why so many of us are unhappy? So that's a fundamental question. So therefore, it blocks our view about the half of the human nature. The half of the human nature in terms of our evolution of emotion is in terms of fight and flight. The negativities, we are hardwired for negative thoughts. We do not want to ignore in the name of positive psychology. If we ignore that, probably half of our view about the human nature is completely blocked. Therefore, the idea of doing measurement through a reductionist approach means we are only considering certain traits through which we can get the result the way we would like to see the result. For example, empathy, compassion, gratitude, kindness, transcendence. Talk of any such signature strength. These are all signature strengths. But if we only limit ourselves to understand the human happiness, then I call it as a reductionist approach, because we are not allowing other traits to be included into our system or measurement device, and then understand how far the positive strengths are having actually a better weight as compared to the negative strengths. Therefore, if you see, most of the studies, I have seen actually over 43 studies very closely. This review has also come up with a very good systematic review, just published a month back. It has published. It has found that almost 99% of the studies are correlational findings. Now, correlation is done in order to explore an event. It doesn't prove causality. So there is a fundamental difference between exploration and explanation. So when we do experimentation, we try to explain the cause of a relationship. So causality is the mainstream psychology. But correlation we should not ignore, because for exploring certain traits, certain concepts or constructs, how they are related, it gives up some exploratory or some preliminary viewpoint. But the point is that almost all studies in positive psychology are using correlational finding in order to generalize beyond even causality. Then, if there is a finding which is going beyond our expectation, then we are trying to vigorously defend it. Then why such things are happening? We call it as a confirmation bias. So unexpected findings are happening, and that's a law in human nature. We'll get all kinds of findings. But the question is that if we try to defend such kind of findings, then it becomes a confirmation bias. It's our researchers' bias that we always want to see the data the way we want to see it, rather than the way they are. Therefore, the confirmation bias is another issue in positive psychology framework. And the last part I wanted to mention here is that the positive psychology does not consider context. I mean, human happiness has got a great role in the context. So if it is happiness that is completely decontextualized, then we will not understand what happiness is all about. Therefore, when World Happiness Index says that India has a rank of 136 out of 152 countries, it's completely decontextualized. Completely. When I go abroad, very often I go and defend this issue. They say that you people are very unhappy. Now the whole inventory of Gallup, which they actually created to measure happiness in different countries, 156 countries, mandated by UN, is actually based on living standard, primarily based on living standard. So they are decontextualized in terms of happiness, and as a result of which they give a very skewed result for us. And finally, they also, the positive psychology also harp on neoliberalized ideology, that they believe that, well, if you want to be happy, you can be happy. It's a consequence of your life choices. Once again, if happiness becomes a choice of our life, then why so many people are unhappy in this world? If it is a choice, we can't expect that everybody would be happy. And if it is a compulsion, naturally we would never be happy. So between choice and compulsion, where lies happiness? Actually. So these are certain critiques of positive psychology. This does not mean that positive psychology does not have a role. During the past 3 decades, positive psychology has grown, and we have seen since the days of Maslow and Csikszentmihalyi, and the work of Martin Seligman, Peterson, Edward Diner. I mean, now Edward Diner's son, Diner Biswas. Everybody has been working in this framework. There are a lot of work, lot of good work. It's actually a novel thought process in the mainstream psychology, which nobody ever had happened. And what Martin Seligman said, that when he became the president of American Psychological Association, he decided to take a stand against the mainstream psychology, focusing only on negativities. That is the primary discussion that I had with him, that why to deal always at the deficiency model, why not to the efficiency model as well. So deficiency versus efficiency is a fundamental dichotomy in this understanding of human behavior. And towards that end, positive psychology has actually made a huge contribution. But I would like to take a slight departure from what we have been talking. I would not like to tell that science of happiness is any way different from positive psychology. I would like to tell that, well, if we have to understand science of happiness, we need to understand what is the fundamental difference between them in terms of their, in terms of a construct. Because science of happiness has not developed fully as a construct. Even positive psychology has not, what Professor Veeraraghavan said, that it has not still come up as a full-fledged construct. Now it will take time, maybe another couple of decades, people will work, and then a construct may be developed finally, like personality, intelligence, and so on and so forth. But the fundamental difference, what I find between positive psychology and science of happiness, that they are complementary to each other. The science of happiness deals with the process, and the positive psychology deals more with the outcome, So signature strength, if it gives certain outcome, then it becomes positive psychology. But if I try to understand what is the process behind, what makes people actually happy, what happens in the brain, what happens into our genetic system, what happens to our environment, our context, everything if we try to consider and create a separate kind of model, then probably we'll understand what is the process behind. So what happens? The positive psychology has a tendency to remain more within psychology, but of course, it has now expanded to other branches of social sciences as well, like in sociology, economics, developmental sciences, anthropology. it has actually grown in the social sciences. But when we talk about science of happiness, it actually includes natural sciences. So when we try to talk about science of happiness, we teach more of natural sciences. If we don't do that, the subject will not grow. So if I say a biologist, what is positive psychology? A biologist will not be interested in and positive psychology. So our attempt was to tell that yes, it's a transdisciplinary science. I'm going to talk about it slightly later, and it has got relevance to all kinds of sciences, including biological sciences, genetic sciences, as well as contextual sciences, ecological sciences. Of course, cultural sciences. Context means the culture is a very important thing. Therefore, if you see, science of happiness is a more analytical science because we see what happiness is all about and how happiness culminates more in an analytical point of view, more from a naturalistic science point of view, and more through a process point of view. But positive psychology more is a holistic point of view. They try to see happiness as a whole, and that's equally good. They're complementary to each other. Therefore, when we talk about happiness, it's more experiential in nature and less empirical in nature. More experiential in the sense we use a first-person methodology more often. And empirical science means we use more third-person methodology. So in science of happiness, we actually try to see how the brain functions through functional MRI, how the brain activates through electroencephalographic activation, how the brain chemistry works, how the genetic system works, how our context influences our gene, how our context influences our behavior. So this is a third-person methodology. So science of happiness is more about a third-person methodology, while positive psychology is more a first-person methodology. But let us not confuse with empirical science and empiricism, because positive psychology depends very heavily on empiricism. Empiricism means that you derive all your knowledge through observation and learning. But science of happiness says that, well, there are certain inbuilt embedded component also in the science of happiness, which should not be, overlooked. Therefore, the positive psychology has become more interdisciplinary from psychological sciences to other disciplines in social sciences, but science of happiness become more transdisciplinary science. A transdisciplinary science is a science where there is no boundary of a particular domain, where you create a new methodology, and to understand the science, you actually develop a altogether new construct. So the question is whether it is a science versus pseudoscience. As long we do not understand the process behind it, it will remain a pseudoscience. And in IITs, in IIMs, everywhere we have introduced science of happiness. Many IIMs and IITs and IIMs, we have actually included science of happiness with the conjecture that we are not pursuing a pseudoscience, we are pursuing a science, and we can actually prove it through some degree of causality. So with this, I hope I could help you understand in which way the science of happiness and positive psychology function in a complementary manner. They are not orthogonal to each other, but it has a potential to develop itself in an altogether new form of construct. So the question, therefore, why is the study of happiness suddenly become so important? You will find that right from Time magazine to Harvard Business Review, everybody is today talking about it. Psychologists, of course, have been talking for a long time. Economists have been talking about it because they say the market is completely governed by your feeling component. In fact, Daniel Kahneman, we lost him 3 weeks back as a Nobel laureate. His fundamental idea that whether money can buy happiness or not, is a landmark opinion. So economists, marketers were very much interested in science of happiness. Neuroscientists were very much interested in order to know whether we can actually manipulate brain in order to make someone happy. If someone is depressed, we try to try to stop their thought process. But the question is, can we actually understand what really causes someone to be happy? What changes take place? Computer scientists have become very much interested in science of happiness because they could realize that with the gadgets like high-speed camera and algorithm, they can say whether the person is really going to be a happy person or not, because they can analyze micro-momentary expressions below 40 milliseconds, and they can put that in the algorithm, which human eye cannot actually see, because to see something and interpret, human eye requires at least 200 milliseconds. But today's technology can actually go beyond that, and below 40 milliseconds, a high-speed camera can capture your slices of behavior, and those slices of behavior, if you do it in a time series analysis, will tell what would be the predictability of your kind of behavior. So you will find that everybody has suddenly become so interested in science of happiness. And if you go by PubMed, it is flooded actually with happiness research. It's not flooded. Positive psychology research is also getting flooded, but science of happiness is also getting flooded, and research papers are being published in all kinds of journals, including Science and Nature. For example, Science has recently published and Nature has recently published articles that when you donate money, your kindness, do you expect something through your own behavior? So the idea of reciprocity versus a donation without having a return of your donation, can brain actually capture that? So it has been found that if you are really expecting something out of your donation, then a different pathway works. And if you are not expecting at all anything from your donation, a different pathway works for it. So your donation out of belongingness and your donation out of reciprocal thought process have got two different pathways. So Science and Nature are publishing such kind of reports. And then, of course, one of the great reasons is that every country is now understanding that GDP is not going to help them understand their citizens, whether they are happy or not. So happiness is being evaluated everywhere in the world. 156 countries as of now under the radar of United Nations, and United Nations has made it a mandate that if you have to present your country as a happy country, citizens with having better well-being, then you have to measure then you have to understand what is their happiness level. So as I said, India has fared pretty low on that. Of course, there are a lot of criticisms behind it. And finally, the interest behind happiness has really surged after the collective loss of happiness during the pandemic. So in pandemic, there is a huge loss of happiness everywhere. People have developed proximity stress, belongingness barrier, compassion fatigue. Everything that we say in science of happiness has actually gone down, or even in positive psychology. So compassion fatigue has been seen everywhere. Belongingness barrier has been seen. Lot of proximity stress with close relatives has caused a lot of anxieties for the people, which we never had an experience. We always thought that if we are close to our relatives, then probably it will give us a lot of satisfaction, a lot of happiness. But we got a different kind of result after having 2 years of pandemic. It showed that proximity stress gives much more, generates much more anxiety as compared to stress in the offices. Therefore, it's very important that why we study happiness. Now, what is that we are doing right now? As I said, over 40 institutions now are running Science of Happiness courses. We started in IIT Kharagpur, of course, with Dr. Rekhi, who is the chairman of the foundation, who actually donates or creates these centers at different points of the time. And he, being an alumnus in IIT Kharagpur, created the first center in IIT Kharagpur. And since then, we have been pursuing Science of Happiness as a subject matter. And over 7,000 students have now undergone these courses in IIT Kharagpur in the last 6.5 years. So we started it as a social experiment with the presumption that absence of negative traits which actually mental health professionals try to see, does not automatically help sustain positive traits. They are two different things actually. And well, when we talk about mental health, WHO also says the same thing, that absence of negative traits does not automatically help sustain your positive traits. That's number one. Why do we run it? Our second point is that it's a non-traditional educational system, which is content limited because we limit the content. We do not actually give a syllabus in this science of happiness. It is context enriched because positive psychology is more decontextualized. But in science of happiness, we try to make it more context enriched. In fact, the content we derive from the context itself. So we tell students when they attend, we run 6 courses in IIT Kharagpur on science of happiness, different courses. We tell students that you express your life experience and life event. And from those life events and how they deal with those life events, we actually create content out of it. For example, if they deal with effectively, we take resilience as a concept for as a content for their syllabus. But it's more important that it's intent driven. So content limited, context enriched, and intent driven. We do not force anybody to take up this course, but we find it very difficult today in IIT Kharagpur at least to limit students to come for our courses, and the registration applications have been 3 times more than what actually we can take. This is, of course, a result after 6 years. So it actually imparts lessons, resistance-free lessons for life beyond career. Because whenever we try to give some value education to the students, there is an instant resistance. That why? Why should we do that? We wanted that the understanding of life beyond career must be given in a resistance-free manner. Therefore, when we advocate science first, practice later, the acceptance level becomes much higher. So we always say that, well, career is within life. Life is not within career. Therefore, it's very important to impart the resistance-free lessons for life beyond career. And we advocate for science first. When there is a cognitive acceptance that, well, there is a scientific truth behind it, then only people accept it. Otherwise, through simple advices, people would not accept what is belongingness, what is kindness, what is empathy, what is compassion, and what is, all kinds of signature strengths. So we run this course with 3 precise presumptions. So the subject matter is a transdisciplinary science. Transdisciplinary science, I just mentioned to you that we do not want to hold ourselves within the disciplinary boundary of a particular subject. We create our own methodologies to understand that what this happiness is all about and how it can be dealt by taking advantage of all kinds of natural sciences and social sciences, particularly the life sciences, and see that how we can actually develop this construct. It's a transcultural phenomenon. We know happiness is something where, you will find everywhere the same sense in terms of at least expression. I work with Carol Lizard, Paul Ekman, people who are considered to be pioneer in facial expressions research. And in our own research also, we have found that happiness is the only emotion which can actually be understood, which can actually be expressed, experienced, and perceived without difficulty anywhere in the world. So it's a transcultural phenomenon, and it's a translational domain. Translational domain means if I understand the science behind it, we can replicate it, we can deliver it. And the delivery, if it is process-based outcome, the delivery becomes much more scientific. But if I try to understand from outcome to process, it becomes a reverse process. And at times, we have to take records of the correlational research in order to understand that. But if I understand the process behind it, we'll understand the causality better. So it's a context-based subject matter, and it's a coping style-based orientation. We don't call it as a lifestyle-based orientation. We say that the science behind happiness is actually a coping style based orientation. And how we understand the context, content, and the intent, how they actually, synthesize in the understanding of happiness becomes much more important. So it's an exploratory science as well as explanatory science, but neither descriptive, we do not describe who is a happy person, neither prescriptive, we do not prescribe how to be happy. The idea is that we neither describe it nor prescribe it, we simply try to understand the process behind it. So it's a choice-based commitment for the students. It's a self-driven engagement to find meaning and purpose. So without what Martin Seligman said in his Parma model, that meaning is the most important thing and purpose is the most important thing in life, that gives you happiness, is something very true. We actually pursue that. So our guiding philosophy is that life is much bigger than career. So through science of happiness, we tell that career is important, but why we should horizontally see the life as well. Therefore, the understanding of science of happiness, running the science of happiness course, is to tell them more about the science behind the life. And then we say that aptitude is important, particularly in institutions like IITs, where people are obsessed with the aptitude and talent and intelligence and creativity. We say that, well, mindset is equally important than mind. Mind is important, but our mindset is equally important. So attitude over aptitude is something we try to push students towards their understanding why attitude matters. Then, of course, as I said, context over content, why context is more important. Content is important, but why context is equally important. And finally, we say that happiness is neither choice nor a compulsion. If you choose to be happy, you may not be able to, because then why so many people in this world are unhappy, even if they want to be happy. And if you compel yourself to be happy, you will never get it. You will continue to aap dhunte reh jaoge actually. If you compel yourself to become happy, you will never get it. So our guiding philosophy is to tell students how to nurture these aspects of our life in order to promote science of happiness. So the guiding principles, therefore, that it's a science of insight, awareness, and orientation. We actually raised a lot of emphasis on its cognitive property rather than its feeling property, rather than its emotional property. So we call it as a science of insight and awareness and orientation. How it opens up our mental aperture is not just a science of comfort and peace. We call it as a process and an immersive feeling, not a target to achieve. Happiness is something, it's a process, not a target. It's a journey, not a destination. The third thing we say that it's about building the future, not to repair the worst in the past always. I mean, repair the worst in the past is important, but the fundamental idea behind science of happiness is to build the future. And the idea behind happiness is that what we try to tell it to our students, that create happiness for others than just be happy. Because as long as you do not create happiness for others, you would never remain amongst the ambience of the happy people. And if your people around you are not happy, they will compel you to be unhappy. So create happiness for others, you will be happy automatically. So the questions we ask in science of happiness, is it a science or practice? Does science explain happiness? Genotype or phenotype? Can happiness rewrite gene? In fact, we actually teach about a book called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. He has shown, he's a world famous molecular biologist. He says that how your mindset and your sense of happiness, your understanding about the context in a positive manner can actually help in having protein expression of your gene, and how growth hormone and protection hormone are actually generated in the brain based on your perception. So this book says that belief is a filter between an external signal and an internal signal. if the belief is scientifically understood, instead of having it as a thinking error, you would be able to better rewrite your gene. That's what the book says. Then we ask this question, brain or behavior? Which part of the brain is happy? Actually, we know that pleasure and pain center is the same in the body, in the brain. But we do not restrict ourselves to the pleasure and pain. We say that pleasure is something which is instinctual, for which a different set of neurohormones and neurotransmitters actually are released, which are dopamine and oxytocin. But there are neural pathways which cover the entire brain, which are actually happy, if you are happy. So happiness is long lasting. Pleasure is very short term. Because it is short term, there's a craving for it. And because happiness is a long term understanding, it covers the entire brain through network, it's a everlasting sense of happiness. You also ask this question, whether it is a thinking or blinking. Thinking means whether it is a cognition, blinking means whether it is a feeling. We also ask this question, when do we actually feel happy? At what point? So Daniel Kahneman, he wrote this book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. And he's no more, I just mentioned to you that memory versus moment, what is more important in our understanding of happiness? So I'll give you certain conjectures just to excite your thought process. I'm not going to give any answer to it because I do not have an answer. The basic idea behind talking to all of you is to stimulate some ideas and think that whether, along with positive psychology, we can bring about science of happiness as an experimental paradigm towards the understanding of human happiness. So whether it is a memory and moment, what gives us more happiness? Is it memory or is it moment? People could not find answer whether memory gives them better happiness or a particular moment gives them better happiness. Whether it is affluence or autonomy. If you have got a lot of money, then only you become happy. Or if you have got whatever little you have the autonomy to make use of it, then you become happy. So I gave you the picture of this rickshawala, probably I spoke to you last time as well, is that this rickshawala earns only 600 rupees. And one day I asked him this question, that why do you are moving around? Why not you pull your rickshaw, you'll earn a little more. He simply responded to me, ये तो आपकी सोच है, आप सोचते हो मैं कल भी रिक्शा लेके निकलूंगा और कल भी 600 रुपया कमा लूंगा. And the question is whether autonomy gives you more happiness, that whatever little you have, you can make use of it the way you would like, or affluence, that you have got a lot of money, but you don't know whether you would be able to make use of it or not at some point of time. So we don't know whether affluence gives us more happiness or autonomy gives us more happiness. We also don't know whether choice gives us more happiness, as I just said, or compulsion gives us happiness. This photograph is about two Ukrainian couples. They actually married to each other, and within 3 months, they decided to stay apart. Then they decided that, well, let us compel ourselves to stay together, and then see whether we can be happy or not. So they handcuffed their hand, the left hand of the boy and the right hand of the girl. They handcuffed, and the key of the handcuff was actually thrown in the river. So after 123 days of compelling to stay together, even their personal hygiene was maintained in that twin stature only. They found that it's not possible to stay together. So neither compulsion makes you happy, nor choice, because they choose to marry each other. So choice did not give them happiness. Even compulsion did not give them happiness. Volunteering or reward, what gives you happiness? When you volunteer something, that gives you more happiness, or if you get reward out of volunteering, that gives you more happiness. So Red Cross did this experiment, did this study. This is an experiment. Red Cross says that when they ask people to volunteer for blood donation, they get more people to donate blood. But when they offer a reward of 500 rupees per unit of blood, they get much less people. So the study concluded that if you give reward, the happiness is gone. If you ask people to volunteer, the happiness remains. Likewise, What gives you more happiness? Is it an object or an experience? Is it about giving a gift or receiving a gift? If you get a gift or if you receive a gift? I mean, if you give a gift or if you receive a gift, we have found, Nature has published this report actually. They found that they have worked actually 136 countries, and Nature published this report. And it has been found that when you purchase gift for someone, it gives you more happiness rather than when you actually receive gift from someone. Whether comfort gives you more happiness, whether challenge gives you more happiness, whether you try to forget your painful experience, that gives you better life, or if you forgive somebody and get the unburdening effect of the negative memory, that gives you more happiness. What gives you more happiness? So these are the research questions we have. I mean, the very idea of talking to all of you is to actually give you a whole spectrum of thought process under science of happiness, where these kind of research questions can be actually dealt with. Finally, before I go out, as of now, whatever little we have understood, that happiness becomes much easier if we stop focusing on it. If you try to pursue happiness, it will separate us from others. It will separate us from others. If you try to unnecessarily focus on happiness, it will only highlight our deficiencies. If you try to reject your negative feeling, it does not make you happier. And negative feelings are important tools for growth and learning. Because let us not ignore how good is our negative feelings. I mean, if you do not have negative feelings, you will never have got positive feelings as well. So important part is that negative feelings are important tools for growth and learning, and not only that, for our positivity as well. So let us not try to ignore negative feelings as well in the pursuit of happiness. So a lot of countries in the world are actually pursuing science of happiness. Yale University has been doing it, McGill has been doing it, Stanford has started doing it, Harvard has been doing it, Pennsylvania, of course, I have gone there, and Harvard also I had gone, and I have seen what they do, and we are all aware of that, I mean, longitudinal study which is continuing since 1938 on happiness and relationship. And of course, in IIT Kharagpur, we also have a Center of Science of Happiness. And our 41st center, we have just opened in University of Waterloo, the Science of Happiness. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Professor Singh, you are muted.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, I can listen to you.
Yes, thank you, Professor Mandal. It was, as expected, a very pleasant talk covering variety of, hues of this whole topic, which is so close to us. And starting with some of the prominent points, what positive psychology critique, but at the same time also highlighting what positive psychology has been contributing for the pursuit of happiness. And yes, there is no doubt that if we are pursuing this particular topic and its understanding in the hardcore psychology concept, we need to be focusing on the context as well as the causality. That's an important part of that. And that is how that we can make happiness as a science. And only a science can have, the translational aspect. You have already said that if we understand the basics of science, then only probably we'll be able to apply those principles to make really people happy. You have cited recent studies and published in Nature that the micro contexts are so important. That if you are donating and are you expecting something, if you are purchasing or you are simply giving a gift, every context is important, and there is a lot of scope of conducting the fine experiments and seeing the importance of various kinds of, the small context. Because the life is always contextualized. Every moment is rather contextualized.
Yes.
When we are going to the people, and when I'm asking that really are they happy, we found that many times that they say that they are not sure that they're happy, but they can definitely say that they are not unhappy. So the issue is whether the cognition or the issue is that of the perception. These are also some of the important points which matter here. Amit, एक बार देखना ही भाई कुछ.
Yeah, I can listen to you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think these are some of the very important issues, that whether the feeling and the cognition aspect, actually people do not have a clear perception what the happiness means to them. That is also very important when somebody has not a clear perception. So is it the failure of feeling of happiness, or they do not have a clear perception what happiness is? So that is the kind of, when we go for the people's narratives, and when they do not in fact know. So is it something, when the brain, you have the evidences that the brain is giving a different kind of highway which is being used for the happiness, and the authentic happiness, or really the perceived happiness. That is also the point, that if we are really going to make it as a translational, first of all, as you have also mentioned, that we are still searching the construct. We have yet to construe very well, as you mentioned, that we do not reach yet to the level of the personality and intelligence as construct. And in science, the construct is very, very important. So I think a lot of theorization is also required there. So there may be, confluence of many different thoughts coming from different fields. You are pursuing a disciplinary,
Transdisciplinary.
and whereas the positive psychology is going interdisciplinarily, and they are making inroads into all kinds of human sciences, because that seems to be very easy for them to accept first. And of course, giving the high level technological facilities, and pursuing to the very, very basic questions, how the neuropsychology of happiness may really be pursued, and later on studied. Perhaps definitely that will, I think that there should be a concerted effort.
Yeah.
The positive psychology, as well as those who are pursuing other emotions also. Ultimately, everything leads to the positive or the negative effect. You have also mentioned that when you are trying to find out, going with all the bundle of the positive emotional states, certainly you will be leading to the end result of the happiness. That is most of the regression aspects or the correlational studies really reach to, that from where you start, what bundles you have taken in this all, the multivariate study and pursuing correlational research. Some interesting complexes do emerge, but the stability of those variables do not actually hold. So even the consistency is questionable.
Yeah.
But I think that yes, we all in different disciplines are pursuing the happiness, because that seems to be the ultimate, the goal. Everybody wants to be happy. There is no question in it. There is no choice in it. It's a very, very easy choice, and we all are pursuing and going in this particular direction. So yes, there are so many eye-opening things you have mentioned, including the critique aspect, as well as the recent studies which are coming, and the hardcore sciences like nature and science is publishing. It means that yes, it is certainly a science like any other science, of whether the quantum or the physics or the astrophysics, to the level of that. But yes, so many work needs to be done, and your center is doing a lot of work, human services, because at least with that, people are sensitized, people start working, and then many people will join. Already 40 universities have done, and I'm very happy to say that Professor Rekhi has already advanced an option to the government of Haryana also,
Yeah,
that- Yes, yes.
Kurukshetra
And,
also actually we
yes,
did it.
and
All
the chief
colleges will come under this Keynote.
yes, yes. And the Chief Secretary of the Education has already, sent the messages that yes, it should be pursued. So slowly, I think the things are getting popular. And,
Yeah.
popularity of science is also important at the same time.
Yes, yes.
Because, yes, for the
That's
attitude. So we are very happy that you have touched all very important points around the happiness, and many researchers who have joined, and all the members of the Association of Positive Psychology. We are really thankful for this particular talk, and I am sure that we all have been benefit with it. And it will certainly, enhance our understanding of the happiness and take us on the further side and really make people happy too. So with all these words, I again convey my thanks to Professor Mandal as well as the Association of Positive Psychology. That's such an important topic, which is at the core of positive psychology, had been taken at the inaugural session. And I'm sure that such points will also be deliberated upon in the coming sessions. With this, I close my remarks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Singh. A quick announcement to all attendees. While you cannot unmute yourself or you cannot unmute your videos, but if you have any questions for Professor Manas Kumar Mandal, you can post your questions in the Q&A box. So we'll wait for a few seconds for you to post your questions.
Yeah, I am ready to answer if there are questions.
And so while we wait for the questions, as a student of psychology, I must say that it is an absolute pleasure always attending your talks. I remember attending your talk even the last time in our first conference.
Yes, yes.
And thank you so much for touching upon such contemporary, ongoing topics. And I think as early career researchers and also for PhD scholars who are attending the inaugural keynote lecture, for us, I think a key takeaway, apart from, of course, the thin line of difference between science of happiness and positive psychology, and also the complementary nature of the two, I think a key takeaway for us is your engagement with the contemporary literature and how we should also be definitely doing the same. There's a question by Mehek. Mehek, sorry, your question has not been posted in its entirety. Could you please repost your question? For now, we can only see. Okay, so there's a question from Naman Jain. The question is, can anybody join the Science of Happiness course in IIT Kharagpur, and does it have an online course as well? So if you could.
We run it for our BTech, MTech students. Actually, it's a regular program. Those who are students of IIT Kharagpur, they can only join. But we have plans for, we conduct several such sessions throughout the year from different Stanford University, Harvard University. Different lectures we actually keep conducting. And if people are interested and if those names are forwarded, I'll send the link. But we have not yet started a dedicated certificate course or a diploma course from IIT Kharagpur, because that requires Senate approval. So it has been popularized, but I still believe that it takes a little more time before we consolidate our position as a student of psychology and be sure that what we are imparting is science and it does not move away from mainstream psychology. Because if it moves away from mainstream psychology, then probably our route gets blurred. We don't want that. So that's what is the position right now.
Right. So in fact, there are 4 questions all related to the online course on happiness. So I think, sir, for all those who asked the question, Mehek, Bhavika, Naman, sir has already responded to the question. So if there are no further...
If a group of name or these things are, passed on to us, all such talks which are being delivered from time to time, nearly every month, every week, we have been doing it. We can actually invite everybody to join those. We would be very happy to do that. And we would be very happy to create a Science of Happiness Center in IIT Delhi also. And I have the privilege of doing that. We can fund it. We can fund it. we can create a set like we did it in for different institutes, IIMs, IITs, and AIMS. We can do it for IIT Delhi as well. What we need is a proposal and of course a formal interaction and a MOU.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the end of the inaugural keynote session. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
supporting us so far and being there for our second conference as well. It means a lot to all of us at NPPA. And with this, we come to the end of the inaugural keynote session. And I now hand over the floor to Ms. Sargam Bhatnagar, PhD scholar from IIT Delhi, who is the moderator for the next keynote session. Sargam, over to you.
Shilpa, before
Yes.
I actually leave, just I saw the last question just now. There are 45 research scholars in science of happiness in IIT Kharagpur. So a lot of people have been doing PhD on science of happiness, both from engineering disciplines as well as from other sciences. So over 40 people have been doing PhD. Anybody is interested in undertaking PhD program in IIT Kharagpur? They are free to apply for that, and there are provisions for doing that. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Sargam, over to you.